Welcome to my channel. This is Bruce the Boss, and there is the pandemic of the worst cold ever sweeping the United Kingdom right now. That's the topic of today's video, but before we get into it, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like this video, comment on this video, help beat the YouTube algorithm that doesn't like us talking about things that stray against the mainstream narrative or the single narrative that they seem to want to be pushing and or censoring anyone to the alternative. And speaking of that, again, if you haven't noticed, the worst cold ever is trending right now on Twitter. Even the BBC has come out with an article in recent days describing this new pandemic of the cold that is sweeping the country, which is very odd considering that people are struggling and suffering from even more severe cold symptoms than ever before. A doctor mentioned in the BBC article is linking this to easing on restrictions on mass gatherings, which have exposed people to the viruses, to the cold virus that they've otherwise not been exposed to before, although others are potentially linking this to potential what they like to call breakthrough cases for those who had jab and just getting COVID once again, just a less severe version of it potentially. But still, it looks like the whole, and so I'm not allowed to say that the pandemic restrictions were not effective because YouTube would censor me. So I'm not going to say it. But it looks like the cure may have been potentially worse than the disease, and a lot of us, including medical professionals who were silenced on lockdowns to begin with, talked about this from the very beginning. It's in, who is it, Dr. Erickson and that clinic in San Diego, I believe it was, who said, in my Immunology 101 dictates that you need, for those who are healthy, who are not immune compromised or other severe pre-existing conditions, need constant exposure to bacteria and viruses, because that's how you build up a healthy immune system. Your body needs to be exposed to various things so it could fight it off. It's in the fighting off of the various bacteria and other infections and viruses that it builds its strength, much like working out, lifting weights, and tearing your muscles apart only for them to be rebuilt and come back even stronger. That's the whole purpose. Hence why a lot of not only lockdowns and separating people from each other and limiting their exposure, but also telling them to constantly wipe and wash their hands all throughout the day, including using a lot of antibacterial soaps and or hand sanitizer, was all bad because exposure to these things are necessary. You know, hence why, speaking of Columbus Day that recently passed a little over a week ago, one of the reasons why the Native Americans were wiped out so quickly wasn't because of the sword or the gun, but because their exposure to viruses brought over by the Europeans, by the Portuguese and the Spaniards, as well as the British and the French further up north, bringing various diseases such as smallpox, which wasn't all that deadly to the general population of Europeans, but once introduced to these otherwise healthy Native Americans for the very first time, it killed them by the millions. By the millions. Aztec, largest empire in the Americas of Native Americans, had well over 3 million populace, potentially just wiped out a year later after first contact with the Portuguese. And so it's just very interesting that people seem to have forgotten that, and that seems to be biting the UK in the butt right now, as individuals who are now getting exposed to the common cold, which normally they would have been able to kick extremely easily a year ago, are now suffering from it for a little bit longer than normal. So instead of being able to kick it for a day, it's or a day or 2, 3 days, it's sticking with them for over a week. Many of them can't even sleep and or go throughout their normal day processes with the same level of ease as they would have otherwise been able to, because it's just kicking their butt. They're exhausted. They're feeling drained. And so that's what's happening in the UK right now. I don't see the United States suffering from that as much because we fought it a little bit more depending on what state you live in, whether you lived in Florida, Texas, Mississippi, etc. And even for those who do live or lived in some of the more restrictive states like New York and or California or Michigan, where you weren't even allowed to go to your own home or second home for that matter, a lot of them were traveling still to other more freer states in some instances, and we're keeping their exposure up. So we'll see. But that is very much an indictment on the process of just constantly locking yourself down, wiping your hands all day long, and using antibacterial soap and or hand sanitizer. You need exposure to help build a healthy immune system. So it's very interesting to see what's going on right now, whether or not the UK will try to use this as an added excuse to extend further lockdowns and or restrictive measures and or just try to extend this pandemic much longer than they need to. Will other countries follow suit and use this as an excuse and or case? We'll see. But it's just crazy. And I always say, you just got to stand up eventually and start questioning a lot of these narratives that are being told. I always say the first thing you should always do, or first position, should be to question and be skeptical of everything. And if you can attack any and everything that you're being told with a round of barrage of questions and inquiries and tests, and if they can survive that test and our onslaught of questions, it's worth then considering. Never just take anything at face value and just accept it without question. Always challenge the mold. So that's what's happening in the UK. I say here at home in the United States, make sure you're fighting and or questioning any and everything, whether it be pro-jab requests and or anti-jab, rhetoric being told. Question it all. Make sure it's right for you and live by your truth. But that's my video. Let me know what you think in the comment section. It's just really crazy. This is Bruce the Boss. Don't forget to like this video, comment on this video, share this video. The worst code ever. And subscribe to my channel if you're not yet subscribed. Your subscriptions, again, go a long way. Appreciate y'all. Have a great day, and I'm out. Peace.